TV shows killing off a character is fairly commonplace. It is easy enough to knock off a cheapo supporting cast member, or a guest star, or even a villain for those sweet ratings boosts and audience shockers. They die, but life goes on. Whatever, right? But choosing to kill off a main character is something else. Whether it's just one central figure, or perhaps the show has a few big players, these are the ones who drive the story forward, who we keep coming back week after week for. Killing them off can often be what in turn kills off the series, or signals that the end is near in some dramatic big finale, as the show really can't go on without them. To kill off a main character and then keep on going, and perhaps even thriving in their absence, is the rarest of all death-related matters in TV, and yet, against all the odds, these shows all managed it in one way or another. Obviously, there are spoilers in a list about game-changing deaths, so tread carefully, ye who heeds no warning. I am the unkillable Ash from What Culture, and these are 9 TV shows that survived the death of main characters. 9. Vikings. RAGNAR. History's Vikings may have had a massive cast of characters and arguably a pretty broad scope, since it relies on watching Viking people flay each other alive and pillage helpless townsfolk. But for its first 4 seasons, it was all related to the adventures of one man, Ragnar Lothbrok, a legendary Norse hero played by Travis Fimmel. Now, Ragnar may have been legendary, but he wasn't immortal, and all the ravaging had to catch up with him eventually, as it does to us all. That moment finally came in the season 4 finale, with Ragnar killed by El, King of Northumbria, much like he supposedly was in real life too. The cause of death was suitably unpleasant, with Ragnar being dropped into a pit of snakes. Far from being the end point though, it is a transitional moment, with the torch passing to Ragnar's sons and an exploration of the consequences of their father's death. The show has continued to receive strong reviews and has only suffered a slight dip in the ratings too, with season 6 already confirmed to be on its way. Ragnar may be gone, but his legacy lives on. Good night, sweet prince. 8. Charmed. PRUE HALLIWELL. 90s witchcraft truly was the best witchcraft, as Charmed and Sabrina have always proved. But where losing Sabrina would have really been a problem for a show titled after her, Charmed found a workaround for its Charmed 3, the original group being a trio of sisters regarded as the most powerful good witches of all time: Prue, Piper, and Phoebe Halliwell. But as it turns out, good old Prue was no stranger to on-set issues, having reportedly been fired previously from Beverly Hills 90210, and this time the actress supposedly had a feud with co-star Phoebe that led to the latter issuing an ultimatum. Prue was the one that got killed off, but the show would continue for more seasons without her than it had actually with her. They pulled the long-lost sister routine to replace her with Paige Matthews, and although the show didn't quite reach the same heights, it still produced some great episodes, and didn't lose too many viewers either. Have you got a problem with someone you work with? Just summon an all-powerful demon to take them out with. Always works a treat. 7. Grey's Anatomy. Derek McDreamy Shepherd. Sure, Grey's Anatomy may have been named for Meredith Grey, but the show's focal point is so often on her romantic pairings and potential suitors that Derek Shepherd, aka McDreamy, became a large part of the main cast throughout the series. The on-again, off-again, will-they-won't-they relationship between Meredith and McDreamy had been the heart of the show from the very beginning, and continued long after it had killed off a number of other series regulars, with Shepherd hanging around until season 11. It was only then that he was killed off in a fatal traffic collision, with a rift between actor Patrick Dempsey and creator Shonda Rhimes reportedly opening up. But despite the fact it had already run longer than most shows, Grey's Anatomy is still going strong. It's currently halfway through season 15, with season 16 expected to happen too, and no signs of things ending after that either. You might be able to kill McDreamy, but you cannot kill this show. 6. ER. Dr. Mark Greene. From one long-running medical drama to another, when ER started, it was centered on a group of doctors, led by Anthony Edwards' Dr. Mark Greene and, more famously, George Clooney's Dr. Doug Ross. While Clooney departed at the turn of the century to focus on his fat-ass movie career, Edwards stayed around to lead the show for a bit longer, until his death in season 8. Unlike many a main character departure though, this wasn't a sudden shock, but one that had been a long time coming. At the end of the season, Greene died of the brain tumour he'd been battling for quite some time, resulting in what is ER's most heartbreaking moment. However, because nothing is sacred, the show would continue long after Greene's death, introducing a new wave of doctors to take on the mantle and running for another 7 seasons in total. 5. 2.5 Men. Charlie Harper. Charlie Sheen wasn't just the star of 2.5 Men, he was the sitcom star of the entire era, with a reported salary of a whopping $2 million per episode. 2.5 people might have made up the title, but he was the real face of it for his first 8 seasons. And what a face it was. Charlie Sheen, because he's Charlie Sheen, went and made some derogatory comments about showrunner Chuck Lorre, followed by a very public meltdown. Production of the show had initially gone on hiatus in January 2011, so Sheen could undergo rehab for substance addiction, before Sheen called Lorre a stupid little man and spoke of violently hating him, alongside some even less savoury comments. The final few episodes of Season 8 were cancelled and Sheen dismissed from the series, which definitely could have been the end of things, but Lorre decided to press ahead with Season 9 anyway, which killed Charlie Harper off and brought in Ashton Kutcher's Walden Schmidt as a replacement, and the show ended then a few seasons later. Although that was not before it revealed that Charlie hadn't died after all, brought him back for the finale and then dropped a piano on his head. And to think Sheen was the one raving about tiger blood. 4. The Walking Dead. Carl Grimes. Rick might have been the big bad boss of the show, but Carl was the future. The whole reason Rick kept on fighting and the person to whom the torch would pass when the time came. But while Rick departed the show with his life just intact, the same couldn't be said for his son. Revealing that he'd been bitten in the mid-season 8 finale, it wasn't until a few months later when the show returned from its break that we get the conclusion to Carl's story, with him dying peacefully in Alexandria, his father by his side. It was, then and now, the show's biggest mistake, despite some strong competition in that regard, because Carl was the whole frickin' point. And yet, much as the characters in the show, The Walking Dead has kept on surviving. What's more, in Season 9 it's even managed to turn a corner, with multiple time jumps leading to the storylines feeling fresher and more exciting than it has done for years. It doesn't make his death better, but it does show that this show will find a way to keep on going regardless of what happens. Whether it should or not is an entirely different question, but hey, you can't keep a walker down. 3. Homeland. Nicholas Brody. In the show's formative years, the crux of the narrative was the idea that US Marine Nicholas Brody had been turned after being captured by Al-Qaeda as a prisoner of war, and that distrust, mystery and relationship is what really drove the show forward and made it something of an overnight sensation. That storyline, however, wasn't sustainable long term, and it wasn't too long before Homeland needed to shake things up. By Season 3, despite Carrie believing in his innocence, Brody is one of the most wanted criminals in the whole world, and is eventually found guilty of treason after being captured in Iran. Carrie wants to clear his name, but Brody accepts his fate and is publicly hanged. It's a true game changer for the series, but it actually worked in the show's favour. It allowed it to evolve into something different, and while there's been some struggles along the way, it has been consistently interesting, which the dynamic between Carrie and Brody had long since stopped being. 2. Game of Thrones. Ned Stark. Main characters had been killed off before Game of Thrones, but not like this. This was the biggest game-changing moment, not just for the show, but for television itself. Sure, it's one thing to kill off a main character if you need to fire the actor, or if you're a few seasons in and the series requires a shake-up, but to kill off the main character 9 episodes in, when the entire series is shaping up to be his story. Yes, of course, it happened first in the books, but that doesn't make it any less of a shocking moment in TV terms, and one that would come to define the series moving forward. Sean Bean was the biggest name among the cast, and Ned Stark the lead character of its sprawling ensemble. With the battle lines drawn against the Lannisters, it seemed like Ned would live a long time yet. Even when his head's on the block and the sword is raised, you expect him to get out of it somehow. Somehow! Please! Of course, he does not. But Game of Thrones has gone from strength to strength. It has become the biggest show in the world, while Ned's death allowed it to expand its storytelling, ramping up in both scale and intrigue. Game of Thrones didn't just survive Ned's death, Ned had to die so Game of Thrones could live. And really, all men must die. 1. The Wire. Stringer Bell. The The Wire centred on a number of different characters, so to try and put one at the middle of that sort of programme would only result in the city of Baltimore itself, which sounds far too nerdy. So let's talk about Stringer instead. He represented the very core of the city's dichotomy, a man caught up in its underbelly but with the smarts to get out of the game, or at least change it to suit his own ends. He was very much a man with a foot in each world, but the game is the game. Belle's death came towards the end of Season 3, where Brother Muzone and Omar Little eventually catch up to him, leading to the heart-stopping moment before, well, his heart stops. What that represented, though, was a key idea of the show, that the life of Baltimore is more powerful than even the show's most powerful characters. The Wire changed course in Season 4 with a move away from Stringer and Avon, focusing more on the next generation, and in doing so delivered the most powerful, heart-wrenching season of the entire series, before going out on a high in Season 5. Short and sweet, after all. And that's our list. What other TV shows soldiered on without a protagonist? Share your findings in the comments section below. I've been Ash, and this has been What Culture. Make sure to subscribe to the What Culture YouTube channel for more lists like this, and don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. Thanks for watching.